Hello, welcome to my channel, Rise of Edge Crusher. I'm an Overwatch coach and I specialize in teaching bronze and silver players the skills that they need to get out of those ranks. With that in mind, if you are higher than bronze, silver, maybe gold, you might not find this video all that helpful, but this is a map walkthrough guide for King's Row, which talks about how to take and maintain space on the map, what exactly space is in Overwatch to a little extent, but more where the correct places are to push to and hold. Okay, so as you're coming out of spawn here, and keep this in mind for really every map, look out the door and see what they have coming at you. If everyone is standing at the gate right there, and they're about to throw a fire strike in here, maybe some Hanzo arrows, some Junkrat spam, just back up around the corner and let that stuff hit the wall here. You don't want it hitting your team, you don't want them getting early ult charge if you can help it. If there's a Junkrat trap here, make sure you don't step in that unless you want your Zarya to step in it and get some energy maybe. But after that, they should back off. If they hold outside of the spawn here, they're stupid, because right outside of your spawn, you obviously have spawn advantage. So then you just take the fight here and kill them. You'll keep getting into the fight faster than they can get back from spawn. If you get one pick, it's worth a lot more than if they get one pick. But once they're out of the way and they've gone back to the corner that they should be holding at, or you've wiped them, you push up to here using the bus for cover, hold shield as you go around to this wall. Then you put your shield down here, let it recharge if it's taken any damage. When you're standing here, I see this common mistake at lower ranks. A lot of Rhines will just stand here and they'll hold their shield up around the corner, and it's like they're just giving the enemy free poke on their shield for no reason. They're safe here, they're not going to take any damage unless the enemy team pushes up around this corner, in which case the enemy team is in a disadvantaged position. So think about resource management when you're playing Overwatch. If you're standing around a corner using it for cover to recharge your shield, you do not need to have your shield up at that time. And if you're not using the corner of its cover to recharge your shield, but you're standing at a corner, you should be thinking about using it to recharge your shield that way. So this is the first place you'll be. And from here you want to try to figure out what comp the enemy team has. If you have a long-range character up in the spawn window there, maybe they can call it out to you. Do they have a Rein Zarya comp that's holding here at this corner? Do they have an Orisa comp that's set up on there on that high ground? Are they holding all the way back here? Can you not see anything, which means they probably are? Try to figure that out, get an idea of what the enemy team has, and that will teach you, or let you know, how you should engage it. So from there, you will step around this gate once you have all your resources. Your team has your shield as Rein, they have Ana nade, they have whatever else they're going to need to push in, Zarya bubbles, all of the engagement abilities. You'll step around here, hold your shield up, and then your team will either plan to hold this corner, or do a rotation through hotel, or walk around the statue this way. You should have that plan. Like while you're standing here, plan that. Which way are you going to rotate based on what the enemy team has? And we'll talk about how you should rotate based on what the enemy team has on their comp. So if they're holding here with some kind of a Rein Zarya comp, whether it's Goats or they have like a Hanzo and a McCree, then if you have rotated to here, you're pushing up to them and you notice your shield is already really low, your team is being forced to use their cooldowns early, they're getting weakened before the engage has fully started, before you and the other Rhine start swinging their hammers at each other, then you want to rotate around the right side of this statue here, because that allows you to recharge your shield a little bit as you're using the statue for cover. If you are winning in the shield war, if the other Rhine's shield is taking a lot of damage and it's breaking faster than your Rhine shield is breaking, then you want to continue pushing into them here. The Rhine should hold at this corner, you hold at this corner as well. You both have this corner for cover. Think a lot about corners in Overwatch and how you can use them to prevent yourself or your negation resources like shield and defense matrix from taking unnecessary damage, unnecessary wear. So peek this corner. Hold up shield as you push into them. Start swinging your hammer at the other Rhine. And you create a distraction so that your DPS can get a kill. If you're the DPS in this situation, you look for the distraction as an opportunity for yourself to get a kill. And if you are a support in this situation, if you're playing Lucio here, you should be speed boosting your tanks in. If you're playing Ana, you should be looking for an opening for a nade or healing your Rhine to keep them up in the fight. But this is where you want to hold, is at this corner. Or if you're losing in the resource war early on, around the statue. Now, if they have a bunker comp with a bastion, and they're set up there, and they're just melting your shield, and you can't touch the point from here. You yell at your teammates to rotate around behind you through hotel. Once they're all in hotel, which they need to do before your shield breaks, you get in here, you wait for your shield to recharge to full 2000 HP, and then you hold here. Hold shield here, force your teammates, yell at them, run behind you quickly, rotate past the archway here. Then you rotate to here, Bastion cannot shoot you here. And you go all the way around behind them. Through this hallway, through this building. You push to here. They might be poking here, so if you need to recharge your shield, which you shouldn't at this point, but if you do for some reason, you hold here at the corner. Always think about corners. Always think about holding corners. Recharge your shield. And take the fight to them here. So if they're here, then you want to push them here. If they have immortality field, you know, make sure you're shooting that down. Otherwise, shoot the Bastion. If you have a Sombra, try to hack the Bastion to start the initiation. If you have high burst DPS, have them focused on Bastion. And you have to do it quickly. Like, everyone has to focus the target as a team immediately. Now, if they're not holding here anymore, if they've rotated into there, or if they have dropped to point. So first, let's say they've rotated in there, and you don't want to really push through here like this because they're just going to melt your shield. You're going to have a Bastion shooting at your shield, and it's going to go down before you can get there. So if they're rotated into there, then you drop to point right here. Hold this corner of point. See, if they're sitting up on that high ground there, they can't see you here. So you just cap the point from this corner. As you're capping the point, they're going to be forced to drop down. They're going to try to set up right here in this doorway and hold this space. And then you can push into them here. You can have a flanker if you have one. You can have a Hanzo flank, go around behind them, shoot the Bastion in his crit box. That's how you deal with a Bastion holding high ground there. You keep forcing them to rotate until you're in a position where you can set up a crossfire on them, or where you can set up to push them aggressively and focus fire on that Bastion, and they can't do anything about it. Now once you're taking this point, if the enemy team is getting staggered and you have a lot of numbers up, I mean, obviously if you only have one person or two people up, or if you're really weak and you need heals, you're just going to hold on point here, cap the point, get healed up. If you can, though, if you have the resources to do it, you push up to at least this corner. If the enemy team is really split and they're struggling, they're backing off, you push all the way up to this corner. You want to be thinking about taking this area where the enemy team would like to set up their defense. So ideally, the enemy team wants to set up their defense at this corner. So if you can take that from them early, and your Ana or your whatever main healer can have line of sight on you from safety back here by the archway, that's ideal. You're not always going to be able to hold here. So if the enemy team is already setting up a strong defense here, and you're down in numbers because you lost some, and you got some spawned at the early spawn, and now the payload's coming up to this corner, you can just hold here. It's situational. But the ideal space that you want to take, if you have the numbers to do it, is right here. You do not want to keep 6 on payload. I see this mistake all the time at low ranks. You see people who want to keep 6 on payload, or at least 3 on payload. But if you have your whole team, and you just cap the point, you want to leave your off healer on payload, and have everyone else hold at this corner. Then what happens is, like, okay, so what happens is, when you're holding at this corner, if you take the fight here, your off-healer should have line of sight on you, so that they can come and help you out if they need to. Or if you're taking a lot of damage here, you back off to them once you get into trouble. You back off to the payload if you're down in numbers, or if you just need to regain your resources. Like if you've used all your cooldowns, you've used your shield, you need to back off, then you fall back to the cart, you can use the payload for cover. But until that happens, until you're weak, you should always be trying to take the space that the enemy team wants to hold, which will be the next corner. So you hold here, the payload gets up to this corner, you wipe the enemy team here, let's say you've done that, then you push up to the next corner, and if they're still struggling to come back from their spawn all the way down there, you can even push up to this corner. You do not want to push past this corner yet, until the payload gets here, because the enemy team has spawn advantage back there, and they're going to have easier line of sight on you, so they will have the advantage over you. You will not have your resources if you are not using this corner for cover. Important thing in Overwatch, always think about corners, always think about map geometry. What can you use to take damage for you so that you don't have to use your resources like your shield or your defense matrix or your Zarya bubbles to take damage unless you have to. The map is like a permanent shield. It's always there. Any wall on the map like this, it will take 1,000 soldier shots or whatever spam damage is coming at you. You do not have to take that damage if you can use the corner effectively. So always think about holding at corners and using them for cover and to manage your resources. So you hold here, the enemy team pushes into you. It's a little bit harder to win the fight here because they have spawn advantage. They might have a stall comp. They might be able to contest the payload as it gets onto here, and they have the closer spawn, so they can keep piling their people onto payload faster than you can kill them. That's why target focus is really important. Make sure you're calling that target's name over and over. Scream it. Even if you think it's the wrong target, it's better to call the wrong target than it is to call nothing at all. Try to get everyone focused. It's better to make a bad decision as a team of 6 than it is to have everyone make their own decision and one person made the right decision individually. Then once you take this point, if the enemy team just got wiped, you push up all the way to this corner, hold here. If you're weak and you barely manage to take that point and you're struggling to get your people back from spawn, you hold at this corner right here. Back off the cart if you need to regenerate resources. But eventually you will push up to this corner, hold this corner here. You don't want to push past this corner until the payload is here. And the reason for that is you can use the payload for cover, and their spawn is right there, right there. So once you push past this corner, and once the payload is past this corner, you have no cover other than the payload that you can really use. So you don't ever want to push past this corner. Well, I mean, not ever. That's not quite true. There are situations. But like, if you're chasing a lot of kills, if the enemy team's getting really staggered, then you will push all the way up to their spawn, keep 1 or 2 people on cart, and just push up and try to keep them in spawn, keep them from contesting, but that's kind of an advanced thing. If you're bronze, silver, low gold, you're learning the game, you're learning how to create space, how to take space, how to know when space is available and where to hold. If you're watching this map walkthrough, you probably don't need to be worrying about that yet. So just worry about playing behind cover, using cover to your advantage. So once the payload comes around this corner, then you use the payload for cover. If you need to recharge your shield, if you need to regenerate resources, let your supports get caught up on healing, you will push with the payload and use the payload for cover until it gets onto the... Like, when it's half on the destination here, that's when the enemy team starts contesting really hard. That's when you need to have your bulky characters or someone push up and just control the space in front of their spawn here. Prevent them from coming out and stalling. Send someone to the other side, too, to control that space. Have someone on cart shooting into their spawn, spamming, preventing them from just getting out for free without taking any damage, without feeling any risk. That's super important. So those are all the places that you want to hold on attack. You want to push up the corners. You want to take them from enemies, prevent enemies from setting up at the corners. That would favor them. And let's talk about what you do on defense against various comps that the enemy team would be running. Starting with first point. So remember, when we're on defense, corners are still super important. So you're going to start here. If you want to, you can push up to the gate. You can throw a fire strike into their spawn and then back off. You can have your Hanzo throwing some storm arrows into their spawn. Zarya right clicks, you know, whatever, spam damage, incidental spam damage, but the important thing is, once they actually start coming out of there, you need to back off immediately. Low rank players, a lot of times, they think this is the choke, they just hold right here at this gate. Do not do that. The enemy team has free line of sight on you from their spawn. They can just burn your shield down, force you to use resources without even having to leave the safety and comfort of their spawn. You don't want to do that. Yeah, you can get a little poke damage off from this corner, but you want to back off and hold here because this is more of a neutral ground where the enemy team has less of a spawn advantage, meaning that they cannot get onto point faster than you can get back from your spawn. They do have a little bit of a spawn advantage here. They will because they're on attack, and that's how this map works, but it is not so heavily favored to them as if you were standing here and their guys can just keep running in, running at you, and forcing you to burn resources. So you want to hold at this corner if you're running a Rein Zarya comp. There are other comps you can use. If you're running a Bastion, Orisa, you hold the high ground up there and then rotate to point when you need. If you're running dive, you can take high ground, or you can start from here on this map. You usually wouldn't run dive on this map in the current meta as of July 11th, 2019. That is the date today that I'm making this video. But with a Rein Zarya comp, which tends to be what works best on this map, what's favored on this map, you'll hold at this corner and watch for where the enemy team is pushing. And if they're running a Ryan's Zarya comp as well, like we talked about on attack, they should be pushing you right here at this corner. You hold this space, you use this corner to recharge your shield if you need to. If they are running a dive, then you fall back onto this back right corner of point from defender's perspective, and you hold this space back here. Because if they're running a dive, they want to get into your back line, right? They want to separate you guys and they want to kill your squishies. But if you all condense into this area back here, you rotate your main tank and your off tank off of this corner on point to keep it contested, and you hold this space, where can they go? The dive team can get into the corner here, trying to kill your supports in the back line, and then they're fighting in a small closed off space. They're at a disadvantage there. You Ryan your Zarya and your DPS will just be able to melt right through them. So that's why if they're running dive, you fall back like a spring with a lot of energy. You hold in this corner. If you need to fall all the way back to archway, like let's say that somebody on your team gets picked off early, you know it, you know you're at a disadvantage, maybe you lose your main tank early or you've lost your main healer early, your team should back off into the archway here. If the enemy team gets a tick or even 2 ticks onto the point, it's okay, you'll still have a chance to recontest if you've backed off and wait for your 6th member of your team to come back. If it's someone important, especially like if it's a main healer or a main tank, as I said, then you hold here for now. Try not to let anyone else die. If they do, you might just have to back off the point entirely and hold at the corner back here, but you may be able to get in a recontest at this archway if you back off fast enough, if you make that call fast enough and your team is able to follow up on it fast enough. Now, if they've taken the point, you want to hold here, but you may be able to push up to the archway if you're at an ultimate advantage and the enemy team, or the enemy team even, is scattered. If they've lost people but they had enough left to cap the point, like they had 2 people left, they have people coming back but they're split up, they're staggered, they're down a main tank or a main healer, you can take the fight right here. You can use this as a corner to hold. Keep in mind, once they cap the point, they will have spawn advantage there. Their spawn will be right there, so you want to be aware of that, and you don't want to stand right here and just let them have free line of sight on you from their spawn. You never want to do that. Don't let the enemy team have free line of sight on you from a place where they are perfectly safe, and they can just take your shield down before the engage has even really started. You don't want to do that. Always use corners. Burn that into your brain. Write a sticky note and stick it to your monitor if you have to. Always use corners. Hold at this corner. Or if they're pushing into you aggressively, if you need time to get healed up, your supports need to catch up on heals, you need to recharge your shield, you need to let yourself have time to regenerate your defensive abilities, hold further back, hold at this corner. If they're just snowballing, if you guys are getting staggered, you're getting killed as you're trying to go in, and you can't get a solid regroup with all 6 of your teammates, fall all the way back even to this corner, or back even further if you need to this corner. You always want to take the fight as a 6v6. Don't just keep trickling in. That's another mistake you see all the time in the low ranks. People just keep going in one by one, one by one. You don't want to do that. Tell them to hold here if you need to get all 6 people back. It is better to let the enemy team have that space than it is to keep going in one by one, just getting killed over and over and over, and never being able to take a proper 6v6 team fight. So don't panic. Cool head. Hold the space. And let your team regroup. Always be aware of corners. Remember, always be aware of corners. Always hold at a corner. The map blocks damage for you forever and prevents you from having to use your shield to do it. And that's to your favor. If you can do that better than the enemy team, you will win. Well, let's say they've capped this point, then you can't really hold at this corner because it's too close to their spawn, and they have the payload for cover, so they're just going to be able to keep pushing you, killing you. You can take a fight here, and if you win that fight, you might be able to hold here, depending on if you have ultimate advantage. If you don't have ultimate advantage, you usually do what's called a dry push, which is you run at the enemy team and take a fight where you're not going to use any ultimates when you know that they have more than you do. And then that forces them to use their ultimates. It gives you a chance to build yours. You plan on probably losing that team fight, but you'll have more of your ultimates available for the next one, which will be taken at this corner, which is a more favorable position for you. So if they've pushed the payload to that corner, then you're holding at this corner here. Remember, always use corners. Be aware of flankers coming from here. And once they've pushed the payload past this corner, then they're in clear line of sight of your spawn, and you can just have anyone back there coming out of spawn relatively safe and shooting them, and they have to play carefully using the payload for cover, unless they are just really coordinated and can all jump on top of you. So I explained King's Row holding locations as though you're running Reinhardt, but even if you are running Orisa, you want to hold at the same corners, at the same locations. The only difference is with Reinhardt, you want to be pushing into the enemy team aggressively, using the corner for cover. With Orisa, you're just going to hold in one place, let them push into you, and then you have the sustained survivability advantage. When they are taking the fight on top of you, you hold your ground. Reinhardt pushes up and takes the enemy's ground at the corner. Those are the only major differences. And then with Dive, the job of your tanks is to get into the back line, create a disruption and a distraction so that the DPS can get free damage on them, and they can't do anything about it. They can't focus on the DPS because they're too busy looking at the big hairy monkey in their face, zapping them with a taser. So with a dive, if you ran a dive on this map, you just need to know where the enemy team is positioned, who's furthest out of position, who is in a position where you can target them faster than they can get help. And then make sure you're coordinating with your DPS so that they know as soon as you jump in as Monkey, they need to be shooting at that same target while there's a distraction for them. That's how to play around corners in summary and in general, and it's also a map walkthrough of King's Row showing you all the spots to hold, where you should push up to, and in general how you should use this map geometry to your advantage to take space away from the enemy team. Hope it was helpful. Have a good day, guys.